If you're learning English, stories are one of the most powerful ways to improve. You learn real phrases, sentence patterns, and grammar without even trying. And the best part, it's fun, easy to remember, and it actually sticks. So if you want to level up your English while enjoying exciting, real-life inspired stories, make sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and turn on the bell. We post a new story every single day to help you get fluent in English. Now, let's jump into today's story. The morning was quiet in Austin, Texas. The air outside was dry, and the sky looked clean with soft orange clouds slowly fading into blue. But inside Elon Musk's office, something unexpected was happening. A message had just come in. It wasn't long, only one sentence, but it made Elon sit up straighter in his chair. The message said, "They're planning to push Twitter out of the European market." Elon stared at the screen for a few seconds. He blinked, then leaned back, thinking. This wasn't just some online rumor. The person who sent it worked inside a tech regulation agency in Brussels. If the message was true, Elon had less time than he thought. Twitter, now called X, had gone through many changes since Elon bought it. Some people said it became better, more open. Others said it became chaotic. But Elon believed in freedom of speech. That was his number one reason for taking over. He had even tweeted, "Let the people speak," the day the deal was signed. But now, governments around the world were watching closely. Europe was not happy with how Twitter handled hate speech and false information. They said the platform wasn't following new rules. Elon had two choices: change the way Twitter worked or lose millions of users across Europe. He stood up and walked over to the window. The city below was waking up slowly. He tapped his fingers against the glass, thinking hard. If Europe blocked Twitter, other regions might follow. First Europe, then maybe India, or even Canada. That would be a disaster. But Elon was never the type to just react. He liked to act first, and that's exactly what he planned to do. By 10 in the morning, he had already called an emergency meeting. The team gathered in the main conference room. Some looked nervous, others just tired, but Elon's energy filled the space. "We are not going to sit and wait," he said, his voice calm but sharp. "We're going to redesign the platform, not just to follow the rules, but to lead the future of online speech." One engineer asked, "Do you mean content filters?" Elon shook his head. "No, I'm talking about something bigger. Imagine a system that teaches people how to read information, not just block it. A digital literacy layer. We won't hide posts. We'll educate users in real time." People around the room started to lean forward. It was risky, but it sounded like something Elon would do, mix education and freedom with technology. He continued, "Also, we're going to make Twitter decentralized. Anyone will be able to host a version of the app. Europe can't block something that doesn't have a single server." That afternoon, teams were split into two groups. One would work on the education system. The other would begin testing decentralized tools, something Elon had been thinking about since the early days of Bitcoin. Meanwhile, in Berlin, news had already started to spread. A leaked document from the European Commission showed that Twitter had failed several audits. One politician said on live TV, "Twitter is no longer a safe place for users in Europe. If they do not comply, we will remove access." Across the ocean, people began to talk. Was Twitter in trouble? Was Elon finally facing his biggest challenge yet? But Elon didn't post a single tweet that day. That was strange. Usually, he tweeted jokes or memes, or short updates about rockets, robots, or whatever was on his mind. But this time, he stayed silent. He wanted the next message to be big. The next morning, just after 8, the new tweet went live. It said, "We're building the most transparent social media system in history." Open source, educational, unstoppable. Within minutes, it had over 1 million views. Some users laughed. Others were curious. But many were shocked. Was he really going to make Twitter completely open? A journalist from London wrote, Elon Musk is betting everything on a new idea that people can be taught to use the internet better instead of being controlled. At Twitter headquarters, the pressure grew. Investors called in. Some were scared. Would advertisers stay if the platform became even more unpredictable? But Elon had already made his decision. This wasn't about short-term profit. This was about the future. He believed that people, when given tools and knowledge, could think for themselves. That was more powerful than any law. By the end of the week, the prototype for the new Twitter was already working. It had a small label under every tweet, not to judge it but to explain it. If a post included strong opinions or claims, a small link appeared. Learn more about this topic. When users clicked, they saw sources, research, and even opinions from both sides. Surprisingly, many users liked it. It felt less like a fight and more like a conversation. Not perfect, but better. One software tester said, For the first time, I don't feel like Twitter is trying to hide something or push an agenda. It just feels honest. Meanwhile, in Brussels, the tone also changed. A few lawmakers started to wonder if maybe this new version of Twitter could actually help people, not just harm them. But the battle was far from over. And Elon knew it. The next week was intense. Inside Twitter's headquarters in San Francisco, people were working long hours. Some stayed in the office until midnight. Others even slept on beanbags near their desks. Elon had given one message, move fast, or we lose the future. The new version of Twitter, now officially called X, was growing every day. More engineers were brought in from SpaceX and Tesla to help. Elon didn't care where you came from. If you could build fast and think clearly, you had a job. Still, not everything was going smoothly. One morning, the legal team walked into Elon's office with serious faces. They had received letters from multiple countries, including France, Germany, and India. Each one had a list of problems. France said X was still not removing hate speech fast enough. Germany demanded stronger user verification. India warned that if political content wasn't moderated better, they might ban the app completely. Elon listened carefully but didn't say much. Then he looked up and said, We're not a publisher. We're a platform. And we're going to prove that we can be a platform that teaches, not controls. But behind closed doors, he knew things were getting harder. The biggest problem wasn't just the governments. It was the advertisers. Big companies like Coca-Cola, Disney, and Samsung had started pulling their ads. They were nervous. Nervous about the media. Nervous about public reaction. Nervous about Elon. Without ads, X would lose millions. Elon had predicted this, but he hadn't expected it so soon. He called a private meeting with his finance team. There was only one question: how do we survive without traditional advertising? One woman, a young analyst who had worked in crypto finance, raised her hand. Why not offer premium tools for users? She said. Let people pay for knowledge, not for status. Elon nodded. Go on. She explained a model where people could access advanced learning tools, media research, and even real-time fact checks for a small monthly fee. It wouldn't replace all ad money, but it could reduce the company's dependence on ads. Elon liked it. He called it the brain version of Twitter, a platform for thinkers, a place where curious people could grow. By the end of the day, a new team was working on it. They called it X-Learn. It would launch in 2 weeks. Meanwhile, the media was having a field day. Headlines were everywhere. Elon Musk destroys Twitter. Elon's plan might save social media. Elon versus Europe. Who will win? Some articles were supportive. Others were cruel. But Elon didn't care about the noise. He was focused on the mission. Still, things got worse. Late one evening, a report came in. Hackers had attacked X's servers. Luckily, the team blocked the attack quickly, but it was a warning. Not everyone wanted X to succeed. Some wanted chaos. Some just wanted attention. Elon gathered the core team at 7 in the evening. Everyone looked tired but ready. "This is not about me," Elon said. "This is about a broken system. If we fail, it means the internet will continue to be a place of lies and control. But if we win, people will finally have tools to think for themselves. So we keep going." That night, he slept on the couch in his office. The next morning, a surprise came. A letter from the European Digital Affairs Office. It wasn't a warning. It was an invitation. They wanted Elon to join a public hearing in Brussels. It would be broadcast across Europe. Politicians, tech leaders, and journalists would all be watching. It could be a disaster or a turning point. Elon didn't hesitate. He accepted the invite. The hearing was set for the following Thursday. Back in the U.S., people started debating. Should he go? Should he even care what Europe thinks? Some users on X said, "Forget Europe. Build your own world." Others replied, "If he wins in Europe, he wins everywhere." As the date came closer, Elon became more silent online. He tweeted less. He stopped posting memes. He even stopped sharing SpaceX updates. He was focused. 2 nights before the hearing, he sat in his kitchen with a cup of green tea and opened his old laptop. It was the same one he had used during the early days of PayPal. On the screen, he wrote one sentence. "We don't need a louder internet. We need a smarter one." The next morning, that line became the new banner at the top of X. People noticed. That same day, several old Twitter employees who had left the company returned. Not for money, but because they believed in the vision. One said, "I didn't always agree with Elon, but he's the only one asking the hard questions." Finally, Thursday arrived. The streets of Brussels were cloudy and cold. People lined up outside the hearing building. Some were fans. Some were protesters. Everyone had an opinion. Inside, Elon walked into the room wearing a black jacket and no tie. He looked calm. The European chairwoman welcomed him and gave him 15 minutes to speak. Elon stood up and began. "I'm not here to argue. I'm here to offer a different way forward. Censorship is not the answer. But neither is chaos. We need a third path education." He spoke about X-Learn, about transparency, about decentralization. He didn't shout. He didn't blame. He just explained. Some politicians frowned. Others leaned forward. When he finished, the room was quiet. Then the chairwoman said, "We will take your ideas seriously, but we need results, not words." Elon nodded. "You'll get both." That night, back in his hotel room, Elon turned on his phone. 1,000,000 messages waited for him, but he ignored most of them. He opened X, typed a new post, and pressed send. It said, "The fight has just begun." The day after Elon's speech in Brussels, something strange started to happen. A few government officials, who had criticized Twitter for months, suddenly changed their tone. They weren't exactly supportive, but they were curious. One of them even said on live television, "Maybe this new idea deserves a real look." Elon didn't celebrate. He knew better. Words were easy. Action was harder. He also knew that anything could change again in one moment. Back in the United States, the team at X worked nonstop. The X-Learn feature was now live in a small test group. 10,000 users had access. They could click on any post and see facts, related articles, and simple explainers. The goal wasn't to tell people what to think, but to help them ask better questions. Some users loved it. They said it made social media less toxic. Others hated it and called it information control with a friendly face. But Elon believed the only way to change the system was to rebuild it from the inside. At the same time, another storm was coming. A group of large tech companies, including Meta and Google, were quietly working behind the scenes. They didn't like Elon's version of an open internet. They didn't say it directly, but their actions were loud. They started developing new tools, tightening content rules, and offering governments faster moderation systems. It became clear they wanted to show that their platforms were more responsible than X. One night, around 9, Elon sat down with his inner circle. These were the people who had been with him through Tesla crashes, rocket explosions, and legal fights. They were loyal, but not afraid to speak honestly. One of them said, "You do realize that if this doesn't work, it could crash the entire company." Elon smiled. "It's already working, just not in the way they expect." That week, Elon gave access to the code behind XLearn to a group of independent developers and university researchers. He told them, "Find the weaknesses, break it if you can, and then help make it better." This move shocked the tech world. No other major platform had ever done something like this. Giving outsiders full access was risky. But Elon believed that trust had to be earned, not demanded. By Friday, something amazing happened. A small university in Sweden released a new tool that made the XLearn system smarter. It could now explain why a post was misleading in simple language that anyone could understand, even kids. Elon immediately added it to the platform and credited the students publicly. People began to notice. One newspaper wrote, "This is not the same Twitter. It's becoming something else, something new." But not everyone was happy. In Washington, a group of senators started pushing for stronger regulation of social media platforms. They claimed that Elon's system was too unpredictable. One of them said, "We cannot allow billionaires to run public speech with no limits." Elon didn't respond directly, but the next day he tweeted, "You can't stop the future. You can only delay it." Meanwhile, in the background, something else was happening. The number of users on X was rising. Not fast, but steady. People who had left Twitter months ago were returning just to see what the noise was about. And some were staying. Journalists, scientists, teachers, they all started using XLearn to share their work in new ways. Instead of just shouting opinions, they began building conversations. One teacher from Canada wrote, "For the first time, my students are using social media to learn instead of waste time." Elon saw it as a sign. The system was working, even if slowly. But the biggest challenge was still ahead. A secret report was leaked from inside one of the largest tech firms in Silicon Valley. It showed that several companies were now working together to build a new closed platform, one that would follow government rules exactly, remove anything even slightly offensive, and limit who could post. The project was called SafeNet. It looked clean, professional, and very controlled. The goal: to make X look dangerous by comparison. When Elon saw the report, he didn't get angry. He just looked at it, then said, "This is perfect. Let people see the difference. One system teaches you to think. The other teaches you to obey." He posted part of the report on X with no comment. It went viral. That same evening, at 8, he joined a live audio broadcast on the platform and spoke directly to users. "I'm not saying X is perfect," he said. "I'm saying it's alive. It grows with you. It learns from mistakes. That's how human minds work. That's how the internet should work." Tens of thousands of people listen live. After that, Elon made another move. He offered free access to X-Learn for schools, libraries, and universities around the world. No ads, no fees, just open access to information tools. People started calling it the Wikipedia of social media. Back in Europe, the Digital Committee held another vote. This time, the results were different. Instead of banning X, they decided to give it 6 more months to prove that it could be safe, fair, and educational. It wasn't a victory, but it was enough time. Elon smiled when he heard the news. "That's all we need," he said. But deep down, he knew the real war had just begun. The battle wasn't about code. It wasn't about money. It was about who controls what people see, think, and believe. And he was not going to walk away from that fight. 3 months had passed since Elon stood in Brussels. X had changed. It was no longer just a place for short posts or jokes. It had turned into something else, a platform for ideas, questions, and sometimes even learning. Schools were using X-Learn. Journalists were posting with context tools. Independent voices, small and large, were returning. Not everyone agreed with Elon's ideas, but they couldn't ignore what was happening. Even Elon was surprised. Of course, many problems remained. Some people still spread lies. Some accounts still tried to manipulate others. But the system fought back, not with bans, but with knowledge. One user wrote something false about a world event. Within minutes, X-Learn added 5 trusted sources under the post. Most readers didn't even click on the original. They clicked on the facts. In old Twitter, lies spread fast. In the new X, truth had a chance to catch up. But there were still enemies. The SafeNet project was growing. It promised governments full control. Every post would go through filters. Every word could be flagged. There would be no confusion, no gray areas, just clean, quiet control. Some countries loved it. Elon knew the final battle was not technical. It was cultural. He gave one more speech. This time, it was not at a government building, but online, open to the public. He said, "I'm not asking you to trust me. I'm asking you to trust yourselves. Learn. Think. Ask questions. Platforms can help, but only people can stay free." That speech was watched by millions. Some clapped. Some rolled their eyes. Some turned off the screen. But one thing was clear. Something had shifted. The internet was no longer a playground for noise. It was becoming a place of choice.